Good afternoon and welcome to UnitedTV. My name is Kemal Erkan. Today we are joined by Delaware Insurance Commissioner Trinidad Navarro. His office oversees some of the most impactful parts of our daily lives: health insurance regulations, property and casualty markets, fraud prevention, rate reviews, and consumer protection. As costs rise and regulations shift, this is the moment for us to have a better clarity, and I asked Commissioner Navarro to join me today, and we are going to have questions for him. And I'm going to call you Trinidad, if it's okay for
That's
this
fine,
show.
yeah.
Trinidad, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a challenge to get here today with the weather,
Right,
but happy to be here in
some
Wilmington on a
snow.
Friday afternoon.
Well, it's good to have you again. So you've been participating with this show, but this is the first time in person, right? Did we have
First time in person.
Right.
In this studio, yes, first
no
time.
studio. So the things are getting bigger here. So next time we may have more stuff happening technically, but we are doing really good. We just hit 200,000 subscribers last week.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
So we may become the biggest kind of health news channel in Delaware, hopefully. So, well, I know you personally, so some of these things is just for our audience who may not know you, which I don't know if that's possible anymore because you've been in the office for a long time. You worked in the county sheriff's position before. So just to get to know you a little bit more, if you can tell us about your public service, why did you decide to actually run for this office, and what has been happening since you took the office in the insurance commissioner's position?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I have to say that I've lived a charmed life. You know, I started off as a police officer way back in 1991. And so I have had a great career in public service. Many people remember me as the spokesperson for the Newcastle County Police Department. I did that for 12 years. And sort of toward the end of my tenure as a police officer, I had some people approach me about some different political positions, which I had never really thought about it. You know, I'm a public servant, but never really thought about getting into politics.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of my 20-year career, when I was actually eligible to retire, I was sort of convinced to run for sheriff here in Newcastle County. And I'll say that I was blessed and fortunate to prevail in that race. You know, after having many people say, "Who do you think you are? You know, you can't beat our sheriff. He's been around for 30 years, and here I am just totally new to politics." But I'll say that what a shock. I mean, we won with like 70% of the vote. And I think that is because people know my name. It's unusual, it's unique. And I think over time, I've earned their trust. You know, I spoke to the public through the media for 12 years. So I was on radio, I was on television. My name was constantly quoted and sometimes misquoted in the news journal. So people knew my name. And, you know, when I ran for sheriff, I was very fortunate. Reelected 4 years later, and to be candid, I kind of lost the love for that job. Actually, kind of hated it at the end because we were selling people's homes in sheriff sales, and at the time, it was right after the mortgage crisis. You know, it takes a couple of years for it to catch up. We were selling 350 properties a month, and we could have done more. We just simply didn't have the capacity. And these are people's homes, right? So it was either a mortgage or tax foreclosure or some other court-ordered sale. So I had no discretion. I mean, I had to sell every house that when the paperwork came through. You know, we had to advertise it and do all the steps to sell the properties. And one of the darkest days in my life at the sheriff's office is when I had to sell a home of one of my very close relatives. And I'll never forget sitting there in front of the area where they have the sheriff sales, and I heard an investor lean over to another investor and say, "Hey, that's the sheriff's brother." And then I always knew that it was people, and I always knew that it had a profound impact on, for many people, the largest investment in their life, their home. But when it was my own family,
this was your brother?
My brother, yeah.
Oh my!
And it turned out it was a really good thing for him because of tax reasons, But the truth is, it really dawned on me then that these just aren't numbers. Yeah, the county made a pretty significant commission on every sale, but these are people's homes. So one of the things I was able to do was track down people after the sale and return money to them that they were the rightful owner. And I don't know that any other sheriff in the world did that. And I'm not bragging. It's just that it wasn't my money. It wasn't the state's money. It wasn't the county's money. It was the person, the rightful owner. So I was able to take the proceeds that were left over. In some cases, it could have been a couple $1,000s. In other cases, it's 40, 50, 60, $100,000. And try to find someone and say, hey, we owe you money. Because they think it's a scam, right? They think that what government agency reaches out to people and say, you know, money. We were very successful in returning hundreds of thousands of dollars to people who are the rightful owners. So that was one of my proudest accomplishments at the sheriff's office. But halfway through that term, I was approached again and was suggested that I run for insurance commissioner. And so I had a background. You know, I sold life and health insurance. You know, I was licensed to do that. I spoke the language. Doesn't necessarily qualify you to be a commissioner, but my 26 years at the time of public service and having operated the sheriff's office and made wholesale changes to help protect consumers, I think it made me a really good candidate. And again, blessed, so happy to have received enough votes to win a primary in that race, and then the general election, and then you know, 2 other times since then. So I've been here for almost 9 years, and I'll be the commissioner until at least 2028.
2028. So you're not up for election yet.
No, sir.
And 2028 maybe, well, 2028 may be a different time and different term for you. So I do have predictions. So since it's live, so I want to take advantage of this and have these recorded. So I see you maybe running for higher offices, including governor's position. I will advise you to do it, but you know, of course, your personal plans are more important. So then you make that decision. Of course, I don't. But I see you doing that. Definitely, you're a lot more qualified than many people in that position. So we'll see about that, right?
Well, I'm flattered. Thank you for saying that. I really do love what I do now. As a police officer, I police the community, right? I made sure that, to my best of my ability, that people weren't taken advantage of. I made sure that when people committed crimes, that they were arrested for that, but not all crimes. And what I say is that there were times where kids were maybe disorderly or you know, I was more likely to take them back to their parents or give them a warning. I really didn't write a whole lot of tickets and do all those things. But, you know, I policed the community then. Now, today, I police the insurance industry. And, you know, I really do love what I'm doing because I help people. And that's why this, you know, is such an important time for me to speak with you today, because a lot of folks don't know what the Delaware Department of Insurance actually does, right? And so one of the best things that we do is help people who have problems with their insurance companies, right? And that's how we find when insurance companies are committing prohibited practices. And typically it's based off of complaints from consumers. The problem is consumers don't know where to go, right? And so they learn of our department typically through word of mouth. We do a lot of outreach. We go to every senior center in the state, community events, civic events, talking about what we do. But they don't. People don't always think about us until they need us, right? And so I wanted to thank you for this opportunity.
That's one of the reasons that we want to bring our state officials to make sure that they can actually explain some of these better. Because one of the, like from what I see is many people don't know what rights they have and where to go and all those, or if that's even like technically even possible, there's certain things that it may not be right, but they don't know how to question it. So we are going to go through all those. But one of the things is, you know, because I'm in healthcare, so as soon as someone says insurance commissioner, I think about healthcare. But it's not limited with healthcare, but it's also with the auto insurance, workers camp, and those are all under your office's management. So, what's the biggest challenge in balancing consumer protection with maintaining the competitive market?
That's a great question. One of the most important things that I can do to help consumers is to ensure a solvent industry, a solvent company. So, for example, a person pays their homeowners premiums, for example, to a company that's teetering, meaning that they're having financial issues. They're no good to the consumer if they can't pay claims, right? So we make sure that companies remain solvent through regular examinations of their finances, right? So we do that in some cases every year for some companies that are, or actually multiple times a year for companies that are potentially troubled. Some of the larger companies here in the state of Delaware have been around for 150, 170 years. They're pretty well managed. They've been around a long time. Some of the life insurance companies who have been in this business for the long haul, right? So their investments are solid. Their liquidity is solid. Their capital and surplus is solid. So it doesn't mean we don't spend a lot of time making sure they're in their examinations. But then we have other companies, some long-term care insurance companies, for example, that are having real financial difficulties. So you'll have some of your listeners, I'm sure, have long-term care insurance policies, right? And they've seen significant rate increases over the years. And you see, 20 or 30 years ago when they were sold this product, they were told, buy it when you're young, right? It'll protect your assets should you become ill or have to go into a facility. But what the companies, the actuaries got wrong was the factors, such as people are living longer. The prescription drugs are keeping folks, alive. The cost of care is, not just in Delaware, across the globe, is exponentially higher than they ever contemplated. And no one dropped the long-term care insurance policies. So what that means is that it was woefully underpriced when they sold that product to people in Delaware and across the country. So we have a large long-term care insurance company that has been on the troubled list for since I've come into the office. And I'll say that although it's still on the list, it's in much better financial shape than they were just a few years ago. And that is because we recognize the issue. We put in a monitoring team in place so they can't just pillage their reserves by paying out dividends to stockholders or large bonuses to the leadership. You can't do any of that without our authorization. That's not typical. Most insurance companies who are solvent, who don't have financial issues, we stay out of their way. Meaning that if they're doing things the right way and they're not on our radar, they're free, an enterprise to do what is best for the consumer, most importantly, but also so that they can be able to pay future claims by remaining solvent.
Now, one of the issues with the elderly is with Medicare counseling, fraud awareness. So I think the education seems to be one of your office's major roles. And now, this thing, the Medicare patient population, because with our ACO business, it used to be always just like provide the service, so you have fee for service. And now we are on the clinical side of it with the ACO since 2016 with the MSSPs and making sure that our practices are not just providing the service, but we are also shining from the quality standpoint.
Sure.
We are actually taking this to a next level by exercising social determinant of health and understanding what these patients really need and what troubles they may be having. And I always use, like in any case of any examples, I use my mom as an example. I tell our nurses, our care coordinators, okay, so this is what I want my mom to have, and not to be bothered with so many spam calls.
Yeah.
Not to be tricked into something that she doesn't need, get what she needs from the trusted um, sources. So, and it's challenging because right now what happens, sometimes I call the patients, my phone number is on the disclaimer on some of our communication, my office number, and they call my direct extension, and I call them back. But when we call, there's the screening, so you have to record your name and tell where you are calling from.
Yeah.
And if they like it, they answer. If they don't, they don't. So I thought it was kind of nice. But your office is also doing a lot of things. How are you helping the residents in those situations?
Well, perfect timing. We're in open enrollment right now for Medicare. Every state in the country has what's called a SHIP program. It's a senior health insurance program. We call it DMAB, the Delaware Medicare Assistance Bureau. And it's funny, yesterday I was in the lobby of our office in Dover, and we were putting up our Christmas tree. And there were just a steady stream of seniors coming in to sit down one-on-one with our counselors. What we do is we help people sign up for the best plan for them, meaning that I'm not saying that company A or company B is better. What we're saying is we have the federal government gives every state funding and a search mechanism, computer system that will tell us that, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they're on this type of prescription medication, so this plan would likely fit best. We're not promoting companies, right? But we're helping them determine, every year your copays could change, your deductibles could change, your premiums will go up as you get older. So every year we recommend people come back and sit down with our experts and we help them pick the best plan for them. It's a free service, right? It doesn't cost anything to the consumer. But there are things that you mentioned, the phone call, for example.
Right.
I think that's wonderful. Today, a couple things. Medicare will never call you. Social Security will never call you. If somebody calls and says, we need your Medicare number because, we think that there's been some sort of fraudulent activity, or we have a special project today for you, and, you need to act on it right away. Hang up, right?
Just so that, please don't forget what you're going to say, but this is so bad. Even for me, what you see on my schedule now, this is spam. And someone was able to get into my calendar and then block something on and then I cannot delete it yet. So I need to be on the computer and then block the person. But it looks like if it's coming from Microsoft. And look, the entire day is blocked.
Wow.
And this is not just with the phone calls and others, but also with, the emails. And even with people in my position, we actually struggle with this. Sorry.
Sure. No. See, I think some of these scammers think that our elderly population are easy targets, right? They think that they maybe have a nest egg, right? They have some money set aside, and they see them as, people they can easily scam. The letters, right? And I've spoken to seniors about this. The letters that come in the mail that say you won the lottery, right? But you have to pay the duty or the taxes, and then we'll send you the money, right? Or, I've been arrested in Canada. Don't tell mom and dad, but Pop, if you can help me, I need $3,000.
TV show in the 80s? It was like someone would want this big lottery. Do you remember that? So someone would get like $5 million, and then these two people would try to find them and then give the money to them. Do you remember that in the 80s? No, you don't remember. This was an American show. It was like I wasn't here at that time, but we were watching it in Turkey. So it was like maybe they were kind of seeding those in, so then people think that those things were possible when it started happening. But this was a very popular show, so I think Phil is looking for it. But
in the 80s, I don't remember that. But what I'll say is that these seniors, unfortunately, are like, I'll help you, Bobby, Joey. They know the names because they've seen it on social media, right? They do their research, and then they'll spoof a phone number. Could be from United Medical, or as the sheriff, they would say Newcastle County Sheriff. And then they would say, if you don't pay your taxes, I'll send the sheriff out to arrest you. Well, we don't do that in Delaware. Right. So, if they're pressuring you, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Give me your information right away. You only have so much time. Hang up. If they say they're calling
from... block them.
Or don't pick up the phone at all, right?
Don't,
but if they say they're from Medicare, unless you call them first, they will not call you.
That's right.
Unless you call Social Security first, they will not call you. Unfortunately, seniors are getting inundated with emails, text messages, phone calls, snail mail. In some cases, they're actually knocking on people's doors and trying to sign them up for a Medicare Advantage plan that they don't need. And we could talk for hours about Medicare Advantage and some of the challenges with those plans. And people think that it will take care of their medical and their prescriptions and the doctor visits and lump it all up, right? And in some cases, that is the case. But it's buyer beware, man. You have to know whether or not your provider will take that plan, whether or not your hospital or wherever you go for treatment will take that plan. And then in some cases, mid-year, they'll just drop the plan, right? The provider. So it happened at one of our local hospitals, right? Where they're like, you're no longer going to take this plan. If you want a new one, this is what they said. Reach out to the insurance commissioner's office. We don't do that.
So this is the one from last year?
A couple years ago, yes. And so we got inundated with thousands of calls from people who no longer, the hospital would no longer take their plan. And that's not a function of our office. So we had a real challenge with that because we had thousands of calls in the queue.
Companies, on the healthcare side, I can speak to. And we have good relationships with most. And at the leadership level, it's a different discussion, a different tone. It's all good. But some cases when they need to initiate something, kind of they cut off the provider and then just go to the patient directly with misleading information. I'm not saying all, but this just happened recently. It just confused the hell out of our providers because their patients were getting those letters. So it was regarding the dual plans, like if they're not providing, the Medicare Advantage is not providing Medicaid or Medicaid is not providing Medicare Advantage, those patients needed to choose someone else.
Yeah.
But the language was so bad, it created a huge problem.
It is because it's misleading, right?
Misleading.
It's written by an attorney, right? That people don't necessarily understand. So that's some of the reasons why we want insurance companies to use plain language, right? So that people can comprehend and understand what they're talking about, what they're reading. But speaking of insurance companies specifically, I mean, one of our largest here in Delaware just eliminated provider reps, right? And I know you know this, right? So what does that mean? So the provider can no longer call this company and say, hey, I got this problem. To speak to somebody you've developed a relationship with, right? And to save money, they just eliminated them. And some of the smaller insurers in Delaware still have them, right? But the largest one, who's supposed to be the gold standard, just decided, you know what, we don't need them anymore. And it was a unilateral decision just to save money.
You may actually be surprised with this one because I think the one everyone knows who that is. We'll still won't mention the name, but to their defense.
Yeah.
And let's see if this can go anywhere with this. I just want to make sure that this comes out right. So, problem in healthcare, like United Medical. So we have with our clients and our own the practice owned by us, 180 probably total providers with 150,000 patients. So, and these offices, they get full support from the central office. Their billing is done by the central office here. Their clinical support is done by here. So, but you know this very well. So in many cases, there are these little small, like one provider, two provider offices who are trying to do what we are doing. And they don't have enough support in their offices. Maybe they have 3 employees and they call one of them the manager. And that person now is troubleshooting everything. And I think it became more challenging. And I can't believe I'm supporting I'm defending the insurance company here. But to their credit, I think it was becoming too much, where they're kind of probably forcing those people to either join ACO-like organizations or to the hospital. It seems like.
Yeah. Because
the healthcare offices, I mean, you've been in many of them. The issue is these offices don't have really good administrative support.
Yeah.
So, the check-in person, check-out person, and there's one extra person maybe with 1 or 2 physician offices, like total number of employees. So, and I think not dealing with the right people probably created some of that. I mean, we still have our own account manager with that company that you mentioned, but I know that when provider offices directly try to call them, that's not happening anymore. It's not, the transition maybe could be better,
Yeah.
but I can see their point a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's,
maybe
that's
we'll
because
erase
you.
this one if you don't like it.
That's because you care about people, right? I mean, uh, in order to have a healthy place for people to seek care, meaning a healthy options, right? Meaning that the more options that people have, in theory, the cost would be less, right? Our local primary care docs today are dying, right? I mean, they're dealing more with billing issues than handling patients, right? So it's a real challenge. So the alternative is to go to work for a hospital system. So they think that, okay, I don't have to deal with the billing, things of that nature, right? Prior authorization, things of that nature. Well, the truth is, the cost in a hospital system versus a standalone facility can be 5, 10, 20 times higher, right? And then the hospitals will purchase these different facilities all over the state of Delaware, and they charge a facility fee on top of it, right? So they're charging the higher rate. You're not being seen in the hospital, but they're charging the rate as if you were. So
I can give you an example from like the gallbladder surgery with Medicare, since they are public numbers. Medicare pays about $2,200 for facility fee at a private ASC, and same surgeon is doing it. And there's I think $600 for surgical professional fee, and the same gallbladder averaging for Medicare patients about $14,000 today at the hospital.
Yeah.
So that's almost 6-7 times higher.
Yeah.
And same surgeon is doing it. Everything's same. So yes, if it's an urgent situation, it's one thing, but
Sure.
in many cases it doesn't have to be. But hospital cost and their fee schedule is something that we really need to look into very closely. But their lobby is bigger than ours. So
Well, to give people an example, right? So if you have to have some sort of imaging, whether it's an X-ray, an MRI, CAT scan, whatever the case may be, and I mean we, like I'm a member of the State Employee Benefits Committee.
Right.
So we always ask people to go to the standalone facility, right? It's not because we have any financial interest in that standalone facility, but it's, some cases, you have to have an X-ray, for example. It might be $600 there. At the hospital, it could be $6,000, right? So we always send people to the standalones. We also have what's called the Centers of Excellence, where we'll send people for certain procedures, surgical procedures that aren't done in the hospital. Not because we're angry at the hospital. We're not mad at the hospital. We don't have financial interest in these other
like
places.
you started that with Surgery Plus,
Yes.
Lantern. How is that working for you guys?
It's working remarkably well as far as the cost savings. The problem is, when it's an emergency situation, and I don't blame people because I would do this for my family as well. But the first thought is, you go to the hospital, right? And you want to go to the hospital, you want to be stabilized, right? But if you have something that's, I don't know, bariatric surgery or some sort of knee replacement, something like that you can schedule, it's not an emergency. We always recommend that you go any place outside of the hospital system just because of the cost savings. Everyone, every state employee and their family and retirees, it's about 130,000 people that are insured through the state group health plan. And the costs associated with care in Delaware is about the 6th highest in the country. So we want folks to not go necessarily to the hospitals for planned services, right? For something that you can plan in advance. Simply because, not that the hospitals don't do a great job, but because of the cost.
Too expensive. And also, I want to add something to that. Prevention is another one. Like gallbladder surgery, in many cases, it's done in the urgent setting. That's because patients are not taking certain signs seriously.
Yeah.
And then, some of our practices with criasis being one, we do bariatric, but we also do a lot of general surgery. And patients sent by their PCP, they have hernia or they have gallstones, and then patient comes in for a surgical visit, and the surgery order is given. We call like 12 times. Sometimes like it's kind of almost like psycho calling. Like I'm like I tell my nurses, okay, stop calling this person. They don't want to be bothered, so um, and they don't schedule it. So what happens? They end up in the emergency like 6 months from that time. So now something that can be done in the elective setting, not only it's going to be inexpensive, but also clinically it's going to be less risky.
Sure.
So then all of a sudden now they have to be in the ER. They're going to stay in the hospital for 3, 4, 5 days, and perhaps they're going to pay a lot more co-insurance and co-pays. And it's a lot of education also is needed, and we try a lot, but there's still some more to do there.
And that's why it's, you know, not to sound political, and I won't sound political, but the ACA and the way it was designed to cover essential health benefits, right? To cover preventative care, so that you maybe spend a little money today, but you save a ton later on, so that that illness that can be diagnosed today instead of 2 years from now in the hospital where it's serious, life-threatening. Paying for essential health benefits today, we know will save dollars in the future. It will save lives in the future. That's why it's important that we have these conversations so that the public knows that go see your primary care doc. Have your regular annual checkups, right?
Absolutely.
If you're not feeling well, trust your gut, right? I mean, we don't want people to be hypochondriacs, but what we want people to do is if they're having issues, just a lot of times it can be identified just in your regular checkups. And I think so many people only think about seeing a physician when they're sick. They don't think about when they're feeling good or when they're turning 50 and that unpleasant procedure you're supposed to have when you're 50. But how important that is and how preventable, real serious situations can be by early intervention. And that's what's critical in keeping the cost contained and keeping a healthier Delaware.
So now changing the topic a little bit to the auto insurance. So you have advocated strongly for removing unfair rating factors in auto insurance.
Yes.
So this is gender, marital status, credit history. Why was this an important issue for you and for your office, and what challenges did you have from the other side?
Well, I'll give you an example. If you have excellent credit and a DUI, you'll pay less for private auto insurance than somebody with poor credit. And so your premium should be based off of your risk, right? It should be based off of your experience, should be based off whether or not you've had at-fault claims, things of that nature, right? Not based off of your education or your employment or your marital status or your credit score, right? We ask the insurance industry to show us documentation that shows a correlation between credit score and claims history. And they provided a document that was written in the 2000s, and it was a position paper by someone who was probably unqualified to come up with that idea that there's a connection. So I have a real problem with these factors that are unfairly discriminatory. And so we worked with our friends in the General Assembly, this was a couple years ago, to have some of those factors eliminated. Unfortunately, we didn't get precisely what we wanted. We ended up getting a compromise. And that's what happens a lot of times because the insurance industry has such a powerful lobby that they were able to convince legislators that people with poor credit are more likely to file a claim. And there's no data. If there was, I mean, I would have seen it. They would have produced it. There's no data to suggest that's true. So it's, and then you factor in artificial intelligence. We're kind of beyond, looking at people's credit score in a way that was done in the past, meaning that, we could look you up, right? We could tell by what you're looking at on the internet as to what your habits are, good, bad, and different, right?
Right.
But today, and we could sort of measure that. Today, it's extremely difficult because of the artificial intelligence that's involved in the underwriting of insurance policies. The truth is, we're really good at regulating insurance companies. We're really good at what we've been doing for 100 years or longer. We, the regulators across the country, are behind the technology, meaning that it's taken time for us to catch up to what's actually in an artificial intelligence program. Because there's, computer itself can't be biased, right? It's an inanimate object. It's nuts and bolts, it's wires and cords. But the software person, the person who's designing the program, whether it's intentionally or not, can be biased. Whether it's an unintended bias, that leaks into this artificial intelligence. So the people who are designing it, right, can say, we want credit score check, we want marital status check, and you can't see it because it's hidden inside the artificial intelligence. So that's one of the biggest challenges as a regulator, is to get your hands around an industry that changes every day, right? So we put out a bulletin. The bulletins go out to all the insurance companies to explain to them what we expect in their artificial intelligence, that it cannot be biased, that it can't be used in ways to just arbitrarily deny claims. We want, for health insurance, we want a physician or someone who's trained to look at the claims that are being denied, not an algorithm. And so
the
that's
transparency on this AI is not just for us in the healthcare, but other areas. It's going to be extremely important. And I just saw something from Sarah McBride this morning.
Yeah,
She posted something about AI and
I saw it.
transparency, right? So I think this is going to be the biggest challenge of our time. So the AI now, when I was listening to you, we covered AI so many times. Jessica Needles, one of our lawyers who participates on a regular basis, so she, we corner her with different questions on the AI side, and it's so it's going to be so crazy if it's not regulated. So if the regulation is too late, like with everything else in the past, so something new came along, and then we were able to regulate, and the gap wasn't that much, and damage wasn't that much. But the AI is going with the fastest, like the light speed, and by the time we actually try to do something after the fact, it's going to be so costly. So right now, those AI, like the ChatGPT, Sam Altman, so he's like godlike person right now, because he's managing what's happening in ChatGPT. So, and then people actually know what's happening with them, what answers. Like there's one with the, people committing suicide, and how the ChatGPT actually guiding them. And there's 7 open cases that we are going to discuss that actually in the January session with Jessica. So AI actually is going to have a lot of, issues if we don't act. I'm not saying we should need to stop it. I think it's the greatest thing if it's regulated properly and the transparency is there, and then there's a trusted mechanism in place that actually just makes a good monitoring of what's happening. So, but I'm kind of, I'm not surprised to hear that that's already affecting how these decisions are being made on your side with the insurance companies.
Yeah, and it has value too, right? So we use AI to detect insurance fraud, right? So it's extremely valuable. Let me ask you a question. Take a guess how much insurance fraud costs the United States on an annual basis.
See, now I'm not going to use the ChatGPT, right? So,
put your phone down.
So
just take a wild, educated guess.
The cost of fraud-related stuff
in the insurance industry,
from the insurance.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. I have zero idea right now,
That's
so
okay.
I cannot use my friend here. So my hands are up. So 200 billion.
It's $304 billion.
So I was close.
You're in the ballpark.
Right.
You're in the ballpark, and so that's annually, right? It's not aggregate. It's not over combined
now, the
over years.
300 billion is 1/4 of the country of Turkey.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's like what that number is.
Yeah.
Almost like a country size in the world. So this is not a small number.
It's not a small number, and we all pay more in our premiums because of the fraudsters, because of the $304 billion in insurance fraud every single year. On average, the average family pays about $700 more a year to offset the cost of insurance fraud losses. So I chair the Anti-Fraud Task Force for the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. So That was the right fit for me, right? Some commissioners are involved in finance, some are involved in market conduct, some are involved in technology. I'm involved in anti-fraud, and so I chair that position. We've been able to share information with other states across the country. We have multiple investigations now that I can't talk about, but they involve the FBI and other federal agencies because fraudsters don't recognize state lines, right? So we have, for example, we have this insurance fraud that involved health insurance, right? And so they were selling a product to people claiming that it was ACA compliant, claiming that it covered essential health benefits, claiming that, it's less expensive. We can put you in a plan that's ACA-like but much cheaper. And it turned out that people were buying it, but it didn't cover anything. And it was just essentially a scam. So we shut them down in other parts of the country, but they didn't pop up in another country or in another state. Same corporate governance, same ownership, different names, right? And they would just continue to do this over and over and over again. And how does that impact, consumers? Well, they'll have a procedure, an MRI or a CAT scan, and then they go to file a claim. There's nothing there to support it. So we have an investigation now of a company in Pennsylvania, Texas, and one in Florida that we essentially uncovered through our task force, through the sharing of information, through putting stuff in our Confluence page so that something that's happening in Delaware, folks, our friends in Wyoming or Washington or California can see it and learn from what we've experienced, how we've investigated it, and how we have helped consumers, but also how we've identified the prohibited practices that some of these bad actors are doing every single day, and it's constantly changing.
So, I had a lot of questions, but with the time, I'm going to kind of go with two important ones
Okay.
on the remaining ones. So now when someone believes that they are not treated fairly by their insurance company, what's the best way for that individual to call your office, contact your office, or file a complaint?
Well, so we have I know it sounds silly, right? But when you call our office, we pick up the phone. That little brown box or black box that sits on your desk that makes a ringing sound.
It still does.
We answer the phone, and I don't mean to sound.
You do because we call your office.
Yeah. What is he saying? The truth is when you call our office, you get a response within 24 hours, if not immediately. We're responding to the call, and a lot of times, a phone call to our office is enough to resolve the issue. In other words, say for example, you had your roof was damaged due to a hail or windstorm, right? And the insurance company won't return your calls, or they're disputing what the actual claim was the amount. Any number of issues. People can call our office, and oftentimes one phone call is sort of enough for us to resolve the issue. That's a property and casualty type issue. This is a real life example of a person who was, unfortunately, she was dying of stage 4 renal cancer. And her insurance company was denying the prescription drug that she needed. And they won't say this, but they're thinking that, well, she's probably going to die anyway, so why spend these thousands of dollars on this prescription drug? So they denied it. And she didn't know what to do, right? She called the company. They put her on hold. One day she'd speak to a supervisor. Next day it'd be somebody else. So finally she reached out to her state representative. And the state representative called me. I was in Leg Hall working on it. We were working on a bill. And I called the company, and within an hour, we had them change their mind and pay for her prescription drugs. And it was a drug called Neulasta. It's a patch, right, that people wear on their arms, and it takes the likelihood of you suffering from an infection due to chemotherapy or radiation treatment and cuts it by like 95%. Now, this drug wasn't going to save this lady's life, but it was going to make her quality of life much more manageable. And who knows, with the different types of drugs that are coming out every day, maybe she would be able to survive this type of really terrible diagnosis. But the point is, she didn't know what to do. She didn't know who to call, and she called my office through her state rep, and we resolved it within an hour. And so you can call our office at 302-674-7300, or you can send us information online. It's insurance.delaware.gov. But one thing I'll promise, and I don't like to make a lot, but I'll
Your office
promise.
always finds some solutions. I can just, speak on your office's behalf, because when we started engaging your office early on, there's a lot of people in the office, they didn't want to do it. And I'm like, no, this is the insurance commissioners, this is their job, so they would help us.
Yeah.
So, and even in some cases where it's outside of your jurisdictions, you still guide us to the right way to do certain things. And sometimes they still get calls from your office, and then things are still being okay. Now, we were able to utilize your office to streamline certain issues with one of the biggest ones. And now we don't file them anymore because they understood that we know our rights and we'll go to your office.
Yeah.
So now we don't have those major issues.
Yeah.
So, which actually was great. So that's what we wanted to have anyway. So it's not like we want to bother your office.
Of course.
But your office was extremely helpful to actually guide us and get a lot of resolutions too. And this is not true for every state. Remember, we do business in 28 different states, and it's not as efficient. Like, we get so comfortable with things in Delaware, and then thinking that same thing happens in Virginia or Maryland or Pennsylvania. I mean, good luck in PA. So things are not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the one thing I'll promise is that there'll be a resolution. Right. It may not be precisely what you're seeking, and I'll preface by saying sometimes people don't tell us the truth, right, or half the truth, and so we don't always give them exactly what they want, but there will be a favorable or at least a fair resolution in every case. And I say favorable, probably about 75% of the cases that come through us actually have to go to arbitration. The arbiter finds on the consumer's side, and so there's not a large cost for arbitration. Not everything goes there. A lot of times, like I mentioned, a phone call is enough for us to call the company. And I'm like, heck, the commissioner's office is calling, and so they get it resolved. And so, but people think that if the insurance company says, we're denying you because of any variety of reasons, that they have to take that. Right. Or if they're involved in a car accident and your car's totaled and your car's a $10,000 car, and they're only offering you $5,000, and they think that, well, that's the best I'm going to get. No, please call our office. Yeah. This is a real life scenario. $10,000 car. The consumer called the office, and the insurance company was offering them $5,000. We got involved. It didn't go to arbitration. All it was some phone calls back and forth. We didn't get them $10,000, but we got them $9,800. And so that person could actually take that money and replace the car that was lost, because they couldn't buy that car for $5,000. Right. And so I have hundreds of examples of scenarios where consumers called our office and we were able to get it resolved pretty quickly. That's the best part of the job, is helping people.
And from the government offices, probably your office is the most efficient one. I can, attest to that. And please stay that way. So.
Well, it's not hard. You just do your job. It's not hard.
Well, still though, a lot of people don't.
Well, you mentioned your grandmother earlier, right?
My mom.
Your mother. I'm sorry. That's how we try to treat people like they're our family. Because if somebody had done something to my mother or my brother or sister or my children with respect to an insurance claim, they mistreated them. How would I want them to be treated, right? And that's how. I know it sounds corny, right? But that's how we operate in the office, and that is that if it's a family member, that's how we're going to.
Like, when I talk to our nurses and care coordinators, I tell them, okay, so think as this person is your mom, would you still not engage, like the consult on this, consult on that, not follow up on the blood work? This person, like if this was your mom, you would want everything for your mom, right? That's necessary. And if she's not doing it, then you would actually remind them.
Will never change, because that's why you've been so successful over the years, is because you had that perspective. Believe it or not, there's lots of folks out there out for themselves, and they're waiting for something to happen, somebody to pass away, so they can get what they think is theirs, right? Or they're trying to take advantage of people, and me being able to protect people from things like that is what I believe I was put on this planet to do, is to help people.
So my last question for today, and I really appreciate everything that you are talking about. We are talking about today is important for everyone who lives in Delaware and really uses these insurance, auto, workers' comp, medical. Now, the inflation is a reality.
Yeah.
And medical inflation is even more than reality. It's been there. Now it's a little bit even more than what it used to be because of the COVID and everything else happened after that. And this is also for other, areas like the coastal property risk, the higher utilization and all that. Now, how are we going to manage this increase, and what do you think the main driver is for these increases?
For which line of insurance? Health insurance, property and casualty?
We can start, let's use the medical and the real estate, the property insurance, if you go with the medical first.
So Delaware has the 6th highest cost of care in the country, right? So we touched on this a little bit earlier about how we could save monies by sending people to centers of excellence, right? We're unique in Delaware. I mean, there was efforts within our own General Assembly to work on, I think it was House Bill 350, right? It was a hospital control board, right? To take a look at how they budget and how they spend, how they price. And that didn't work. It didn't work, and it's under, there's some legal challenges, right?
There's a lawsuit from
Yeah,
Christiana.
and so, one way that we could potentially adjust the cost is reference-based pricing, right? So that everything is based off of a fee schedule with Medicare, based off of a certain percentage. So that if you have a procedure in the hospital and you have a procedure someplace else, that they're the same, right? And now the hospitals have additional costs, right? And so, but I'm saying the cost for the actual care is one way that we could address that. But you mentioned the inflation. I mean, here's the biggest challenge for folks who are in your profession. Reimbursement for some of these procedures haven't changed for 20 years.
I was just going to say, so we get the same fee schedule, it didn't change.
Yeah, so what we were able to do through our friends at the General Assembly was chiropractors, for example. Insurance companies are saying you can only see patients so many times. Well, we were able to extend that. We were able to get them higher reimbursement without impacting premiums. We did this with physical therapists. They were getting about $70 for treatment. Pennsylvania was paying $100, right? So they came to me. I wouldn't otherwise know. And we didn't get them $100, but we got them like $92. And you would have thought that we gave them bars of gold. They were so happy that somebody actually listened to them. We're working now today on dental reimbursements. For many dentists, they have their reimbursement from insurance companies hasn't changed for 20, 25 years. Right. And everything's gone up, for the procedures, for the equipment. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's really hard to stay in business when you're being reimbursed at 1990 numbers in today's era. So we've been able to address these. And again, the important thing is that we're able to do it without addressing premiums or increasing premiums. Now, premiums have gone up, but that's factors that are out of my control. When the federal government eliminates premium tax credits, where people were able to, people who had were within a certain percentage of the federal poverty level, were able to see decreases in their premiums because of these tax credits. That was a game changer. I mean, we went from 20-some thousand people on the ACA to over 50 because it was much more affordable for families. Well, when Congress decided to take that away, it's going to double, in some cases, people's premiums. And I know how much time I have left, but we just want to talk about property and casualty insurance.
We have time, so it's just I know you have another commitment. So
what we cannot control is climate change, right? We can argue about why it's happening or how it's happening, and I think that's political. But the Earth is warming, and because of that, these large convective storms and hurricanes. We had one of the largest hurricanes ever this year on record. As far as the winds and destruction, thank God it didn't hit the U.S. You know the name of that hurricane?
I'm trying to remember.
Melissa. I'll never forget it. That's my wife's name.
Oh.
So Hurricane Melissa. But you were fortunate in the U.S. that it didn't cause catastrophic damage, right? So we've seen fewer hurricanes this year make landfall. And so in the second and third quarter this year, the losses that we typically see didn't occur.
So
And that's a blessing.
You know why they name them after, usually they have 90% female names.
I can't even touch that.
All right, I won't say anything. So off the record, I'll do. So this is one thing that with the coastal, I actually drove down to Bethany Beach 2 or 3 weeks ago with food bank event.
Uh-huh.
Haven't been there for a long time, and I'm going through this that bridge. Like after the bridge, there's like the strip is like so narrow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then these are multi-million-dollar homes.
Was it underwater?
They were like they
Yeah.
were coming like I mean I think 10 years from now they won't be there. Why are they building it, and how are we insuring them? How are they insuring them?
Well, in many cases, those homes that are on the water are not insurable. And you can't call
crazy.
one of our large insurers, name any one of them, and they won't cover them. It used to be they would cover homes within a certain amount of feet from the coast. Now they won't cover homes within a certain amount of miles from the coast in some situations. So people have to buy surplus lines. They have to go through other entities to purchase insurance for those properties. But as long as people want to live on the coast, and as long as people are going to pay multi-million dollars for these homes, there's going to be an appetite for it. There's going to be a market for it.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the coastline get closer and closer, or fewer and fewer footage miles of sand. Right? There was a lighthouse outside of Lewis that's no longer there because it was on a sandbar. Right? It was on a piece of land that's not there anymore.
It's pretty crazy.
It is crazy, and so the earth is warming. The storms are getting more severe, and when folks live near the coast, they're going to have more and more challenges finding insurance because of the losses, of the catastrophic losses.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for today. So I think a lot of things we talk about, again, many people are going to find this extremely beneficial, understanding why certain things are happening in the insurance industry, and also better understand what their rights are, where to go. And you are always so pleasant to talk to with these issues. I mean, explaining them the way that everyone would be able to understand is important. So, and I believe Delawareans are also watching us, and they would be calling your office more often after this.
Well, I hope so.
This
We
session.
have the capacity to handle it.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for your time.
Well, until the next time, stay united. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.